Welcome to On the Slab Horror Show.
Hello and welcome back to the On the Slab Horror Show, the show that we bring to you each and every Friday night. Lads, why do we do it on a Friday night?
Well,
Go
Friday
on,
night.
enlighten them.
Friday
Tell the
night
folk what
is.
they want to hear.
Will you let me fucking say it?
Comedy night?
Friday night is horror night. Woo! There you got it. Go on, will you?
Absolutely it is. What are you saying? Look at him, he's only back on one episode and he's already trying to run the roost. Up out of that boy. Look
Go
at you
on.
with your remake Nightmare on Elm Street t-shirt on.
Hey, listen,
Yeah,
12 quid and pennies.
It's official, folks. It's official, folks. Carl loves remakes.
No, I
It's
love
happened over the
I love
last few days.
I love kill t-shirts. That's what I love.
No, what? To be fair, you were saying it in the group chat how much you love remakes and stuff.
That's it.
As you can see, no guests tonight.
No
We have a
hidden.
resident.
That's me mooching
We have the
around.
king.
Yeah.
Welcome back, lads.
Oh, good to be. I never miss an episode like this, you know.
This was tailor-made
this-
for you, my friend.
Some might say he'd scream for this episode.
Oh,
6 times.
Yeah, that was bad. That was bad.
that
That
was.
was bad.
You can tell he's missed us, can't you, Ted?
Oh yeah.
I know over the past we've had 2 franchise episodes. Tonight we're bringing you the third installment in it. Probably the strongest of the big 5.
I think that we've
No,
all
no,
agreed
not
on
even
it.
probably. Not even probably. Definitely the strongest of
Oh,
the big 5.
easily
Most
the strongest.
consistent. Yeah, absolutely. And we all agreed on
Um,
that on the slab crew, I think, as well. So we all agreed on
Absolutely.
it. Yeah.
This was the one that was created by Wes Craven. Sadly, after he passed away, it was taken over by Radio Silence, and I think they've done a hell of a job with it.
Mhm.
Of course, it is a 6-movie franchise in Scream.
Moving on, it will be 7. We do know that there will be another.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But as of time of recording, still
6,
only
yeah.
6. It hasn't even started yet, so
No, well, that was
Um,
due to, a strike and things like that. A very,
Yeah.
deserved strike and things like that. We are
Yeah.
fully in agreement with the
writers,
writers
the
and the actors and stuff like that. We're fully in
100%.
agreement that they were being treated poorly. But it looks like that's now been resolved, so that's good for
or
all of us.
hopefully anyway.
Yeah, that's good for all of us film lovers,
John Cena.
I want
go
new
back to work.
movies. But yeah, as it says, Scream. I mean to say, like when you think of Scream, everyone thinks of that opening scene with Drew Barrymore.
Time.
Everyone knows the mask. It was probably by far and away the most popular Halloween outfit ever.
Mm.
I'd say in terms of slasher movies.
Well, do you know
or horror
something?
movies.
What I love about it is it's not a creature, it's not a monster, it's just a psycho or psychos in a fucking Halloween costume. I think that's just class. That's what I love.
I mean,
Simple and effective. Do you know what I mean? I love it.
Just before we get into it though, I do love how it kind of came about. Obviously, Wes Craven was trying to find the right design
Yeah.
and walked into the equivalent of a €2 shop or something,
Yeah.
and it was just there.
Like a Walmart or
So
something.
they had to acquire the rights. Had to acquire the rights to it, got it, and then obviously they used Roger Jackson as the voice,
Oh,
who
what a voice.
sounds remarkably like James Woods,
Oh yeah, yeah. When you say it, yeah.
like remarkably like James Woods. And now that I've said it, you won't be able to unhear it.
No, you prick.
But what? I kind of left out as well. It's a 6-movie franchise. There's also a TV show and a game,
Yeah.
so it's been very popular.
The game, very,
Oh, look, he
very
has the game.
good. Yeah, very good.
It got really angry.
Oh, I need to play that.
I get angry when I play games with people.
You were supposed to
when-
play that.
I know I was.
I get angry when people don't do the simple things in the game.
Like what? Like what, Ted? For example.
So
AKA me and Ian.
so part of the game is there's a knife and you can only make a move when the knife is in front of you. So that's part of the rules is you take your turn, you move the knife to the next person, and they can't begin their turn until you've moved the knife. But the 2 lads are just like, yeah, but just take your turn. I said, no. You can't just leave out one part of the rule because it makes the game easy. No, that's just dumb. Move the knife, and I had to say it to them repeatedly. Move the knife. Give me the knife. Give me the knife. Give me the knife.
You should have
And then
videoed that
eventually, we were like near the end. We nearly had it beaten, and they still weren't. And they were like, "Just do it." And I was like, "Move the fucking knife." And they were like, "What?" I was like, "Would you just move the fucking knife?" Like,
And we,
fucking hell.
we lost out by a second or two.
We missed out. We didn't complete the game because the lads couldn't fucking move the knife quick enough. Like
and
it's
that
just
ruined Ted's evening.
it doesn't ruin my evening, but that's the sort of thing that annoys you. I don't mind if we lose at a game. I don't mind if shit we got fucking caught. We didn't do like we messed up or anything like that. I don't mind if we mess up. I dislike that when you mess up because people are just like, yeah, but if we just ignore that rule, we'll do it. Yeah, well, I mean, if I just ignored the rule of having to pay for my shopping every week, it'd make my life a hell of a lot easier in terms of money. But I can't just be like, well, I just don't want to adhere to that rule. Sorry, thanks.
That's fair. That's fair. But that was enough about the game.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the TV show, so I can't comment on it.
The game is brilliant, though. Now, I will say, like, as annoyed as I get about little things like that, the game is actually brilliant. It's one of
Very fast paced.
the most fast-paced games I've played.
How long does it take, Ted, roughly?
So I played it with a different. I played it with a different group before I played it with Greg and Ian. And the first game, and there's two settings. So there's normal and hard. And my default is let's play it on hard. And if that's too hard, we'll go back to normal. But everyone else was like, no, just play it on normal. Just played it on normal, and the first game was over within a minute and a half. It was that quick. Yeah. So part of it is to use. This isn't about the Scream franchise, obviously, but it is the game. So, you enter however many players there is. So between 3 and 8 players, you enter the names onto somebody's phone, and each person has a little board in front of them. So you'll have a card, and you're either in one of 4 locations, and then each location has has anywhere between 3 and 5 things you need to collect to complete that set, and then you move on to the next one.
Yeah.
But Ghostface will randomly call, and he'll be like, I'm in this location, and if he's in that location and you're there, he's going to ask you for something, and if you don't have it, that's it, you're dead. And the way the game works is that if one person dies, you all lose. So it's not a competitive, like you're not competing against each other where you're like you're not, so you trade cards and stuff, but you're not stealing from each other to be like, well, I'll survive if he dies. No, if he dies, you're all out.
Yeah.
So if you get caught and it's like, have this, and you're like, none of us have that, that could be it. Game could be over in a minute, like instantly.
That's cool.
But ours is about 20.
Yeah, the longest it'll go will be about 20 minutes to half an hour. Like that, there's an actual timer in the app that it'll only let it run for X amount of minutes, so it'll never go over that. So it's really good, really quick, really fast paced, and you have to be concentrating on what you're doing. Like,
I look forward.
It's not a drinking game.
Yeah, it's not really one you play if you're having a few drinks. Like if you were having 1 or 2,
a short.
Yeah, like that might be all right, but once you start having more than that, it's like, right, you aren't going to be able to concentrate enough to get around. Just don't bother.
You know something? Just noticed before we go on to the actual list. There's more and more board games now based on the horror
Even
now.
video games.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I have the Jaws game. I also saw there's a Halloween one out as well. Whether they're good or not, I don't know.
The Predator game was brilliant. We all bought that on PlayStation and played that for a little bit. It was really good.
That died off very quickly, though, unfortunately.
It did, yeah.
I think it only died off because we were playing as a group, and then everyone just got busy and we couldn't play together. I think I think if we jumped into that now, like with another 5th, because you only need 5 players to play it, 4 to be characters and then 1. I'd say we could play that for another few hours. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, easily.
And then I bought I think you bought it as well, King, the new Texas Chainsaw game. Now I haven't played it yet. I've been too busy.
Yeah,
but I've heard it looks really good. I've looked at some people playing it and stuff when I'm on the train and stuff, and it looks brilliant.
And you know something?
Obviously, Kane Hodder doing the background for it, and Scout Taylor Compton doing all the female roles.
Very good.
They picked up injuries and everything doing it.
That's Kane for you.
Big man.
Well, I have a funny story to tell you about him later on, actually, off camera.
Oh,
I know,
oh
I know.
dear.
It's not a bad one. No, it's not bowling ramp. It's just a friend of mine was had him over for a convention. Actually, I'll say it. He had him, and then we'll go on to the list. But he had Kane Hodder over. It was called, what did he call it? Screamvention. Did you ever remember hearing about that, Greg?
No,
Over here?
Over here, yeah, it was a few years
No.
ago. So my mate Jason from Heroes and Villains and a few of his friends,
Top man, friend of the show.
yep, had organised a horror convention over here. Now, not a big, huge one, but they had Tony Todd, they had Kane Hodder, they had the kid from Child's Play, and a few others, right? But
That's too big on the list already.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And whatever happened, the woman who was organising the whole thing got some bad advice. Now, I only heard about this today. They got some bad advice, and it wasn't advertised whatsoever. And so, fuck all, people came, and the talent thought it was
Didn't
them.
happen to be the one in Kilkenny, did it?
I'm not sure where he said it was. I can't remember now. I'll get back to you on that one. But anyway, the story I was going to tell you was, so he was getting his photograph because he's my mate Jason's a Friday the 13th nut, and he was getting his picture taken with Kane, and you know the way Kane does the choke kind of picture.
With the gloves on.
Yeah. So he's gonna send me the picture later on, I think. But he was saying he was getting the thing, and he Kane wasn't even trying, and he was choking him out. He was that powerful, like.
just a big strong man.
Yeah.
I heard he's a big man, all right, and he's
Yeah.
inadvertently strong.
So I just thought that was mad because he was like, yeah, I could feel myself starting to pass out, and you see it in the photograph. I'm red, and I'm like this. So
I'm red too.
Perfect photo though, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it'd be a great photo to see. Yeah.
That would though, because imagine turning around being like, yeah, he was actually choking me there.
Yeah. He was saying that he said to Jason that he's actually hurt people, not on purpose, obviously, but just the way he does it, But that's what
Yeah,
people.
but there you take it for the love of horror. Last year they had Scout Taylor Compton and Danielle Harris, and they were covering people in blood, making it look like they were stabbing them. Them kind of pictures are great.
Oh yeah.
If you have a change of clothes.
Yeah, but that's kind of what you want. Yeah, I
Some
mean,
people wouldn't care if you're at a con, they wouldn't care.
I
It's
would.
Part of the fun, though, But come here, listen. Let's move on into our list because we could be here all night talking about great stuff.
Absolutely.
I think
As I
we're
said,
gonna-
it's going to be the Scream franchise.
Yeah. Sorry. Go on,
Movies
Greg.
only now. Movies only, because I haven't seen the TV show.
I don't know.
I've seen the TV show. The TV show's quite good. Different mask because they couldn't acquire the rights.
It's a
to
great mask. I actually
use
think I
the
prefer
original.
the TV mask.
Oh no. It's
I
good.
like the story behind the TV mask where it's without giving too much away. The guy created it in a woodwork class, so it's like this
Oh.
wooden mask rather
Is it-
than the Scream mask.
Oh,
Is it a good watch, Ted? Is it?
that makes it much more.
So the annoying thing about it is, right, so they did the first series, I really enjoyed it. Did the second series, really enjoyed it. They left themselves open to do a third series, and then something happened. I don't know if it was the directors or the actors, but basically it just got canned, and then they made a third series, but it had nothing to do with the first two series, and it was just its own series. And I didn't bother watching that because I was like, no, I was invested in the characters, I was invested in those people, and I was interested to see where you went, and you went nowhere. So
Yeah, right.
that's me done. I'm not gonna. And that third series then didn't get a following series. They were just like, no, that's
Right.
no, we're not going to continue that on. So I can't remember. I did read up that there was some sort of issue between director and cast or production issues or something. There was some sort of issue that came up and people were just like, oh, it just doesn't work, so we just won't do it.
I'll give it a go now once I finish From. I'm watching From at the minute.
I finished. Did you not? Did you not finish it? No.
I'm not finished season 2.
No, I finished it there the other day. It's very good.
I think I've one episode or 2 episodes left. That's a
for
show
getting-
you should watch. That.
Thanks for getting me
Awesome.
onto that, by the way.
I need to check that out. There's a load of them that I just have to continue to check out. There's so many.
That's
good
probably one of the
series.
best horror TV shows I've seen in a long time.
A long time, yeah. And it kind of starts off slow, but when it gets going, it's.
Oh, you didn't think it started slow. Anyway, we go back. Obviously 6 movies. Spread across what 90? Was it 96? The first one.
96, so
96,
you're talking
No,
just under 30 years.
30 years, yeah.
And it was a long time between 3 and 4. Was the big gap. And that was
Yeah.
what 2000 and then 2011 or 12, something like that.
Yeah, and then there was a pretty big gap between 4 and 5, really, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, another 8 years or something.
Yeah, no, actually, it was so 11 years between Scream 3 and Scream 4, and then 11 years to Scream 5, because Scream 5 was only last year, sure.
Oh yeah. Sorry,
So-
yeah. Right. So we'll give our rankings for each movie, and where you want to put them, and we'll go from there and see where the conversation takes us. Seeing as Ted is the resident Scream man, give us your number 6, Ted.
So in 6th place for me, and I think it might only be my 6 and 5 that's going to vary between me and you two boys. I think the top 4 is kind of fairly locked myself, but maybe I'll be surprised. For me, Scream 3 is the bottom of the list. I enjoy Scream 3. It came out at a time where
Was trouble.
no, not even the trouble. It came out at a time where there was this kind of thing similar to Deadpool, where it was real like, oh, let's break the fourth wall sort of thing. So there was real like, oh, let's kind of hint at everything that we're doing, and that's what they did. They were like, let's do it on set. And as we know, obviously from the first Scream, they made a series, or they made a film within the universe, right? So they made that within it, and then Scream 3 is based on the set of the film. I think it's based on the set of the third film. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool. It's a nice little nod and things. But yeah, just kind of, it was a bit, I don't know, out of all of them.
Very Miramax, wasn't it?
Yeah, out of all of them, it was the most kind of cartoonish, I guess, is the way to describe it. Like, it was a bit kind of jokey more than the others.
It got to a point where it even had Jay and Silent Bob in it.
Yeah, and like, I didn't dislike that. It was just, it was very, it was a bit away from the original two. Do you know what I mean? The original two were real whodunits, and whereas this was a whodunit as well, it was more
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, it was more kind of like fantasy than it was like the original two. Do you know, where I didn't feel she was being hunted as much in Scream 3, which is kind of what the first two were about.
The trouble that I was talking about, this one got toned down 3 or 4 times in the process, obviously due to the Columbine shooting and stuff. Everything had to change in this. This went through production hell.
Yeah, and possibly that's why it became kind of
jokier.
Yeah, a little bit more lighthearted and things like that. And that's not bad. Like, I love lighthearted comedy films and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I just didn't think it fit in all that well here.
It's a
and
scary
also
movie at that stage, isn't it?
Like that scary movies had become the scary movie franchise had become quite big in the 2000s, and that's kind of where this went. It kind of went that way.
Yeah.
A bit similar to that. And I just thought it's the weakest of the lot. Now I still think it's one of the better films in terms of horror doing that. I just don't think it's I don't think it's the strongest Scream film. And then always the fact that there was one killer slightly annoys me with that film, because they'd always had 2, which was fun, but then in this one they only had 1, but it doesn't really work when there's only 1, because sometimes it's like, oh, he's over there and he's over there, hang on, how did he do that? And they were kind of like, let's just not explain that, like, let's just forget that we did that a bit earlier. And it was just a bit like they kind of forgot to explain, like, oh, how did he get from there to there? And they were just like, well, let's just kind of forget that he did that and move on, like.
Yeah, so
Fair.
I think I'm in agreement with you there. Number 3 is 6th on the list for me. So.
Not for me.
Yeah, I knew you'd
Not
be
for me.
different.
I'm number 4.
4, okay.
4. I thought 4, like, it's still better than a lot of entries into the other big 6s. I just thought this one was relatively weaker than everything else, even with the jokey kind of light-hearted Miramax style of 3. This one for me didn't really do it. the deaths in it, some of the deaths in it were pretty good. When Emma Roberts sees her friend getting killed in the room across from her,
Yeah.
there was some vicious. 4 took it to a new level in terms of viciousness, to an extent where you see proper, not gore, but proper
Brutality.
anguish and pain and brutality from Ghostface. But I didn't believe the Emma Roberts character being one of them. It just didn't fit, because I think the Ghostface was done, it was supposed to be her. Just didn't do it for me.
Yeah.
And Hayden Panettiere annoys the shit out of me.
See, I quite liked Hayden Panettiere.
That was it. Like, I don't believe Robbie Culkin or Rory Culkin either was able to throw people around the way he was. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think 4 is where this kind of thing starts happening, because we see it in 5 and 6 to an extent, where you're kind of like, how am I meant to believe that this person is able to do that? And 4 is kind of the one. 3 kind of is as well, because he's not a big guy either. But then I guess you could say the same in.
No, but you're more likely to believe that thing from 3 is able to throw someone around more than Emma Roberts, who's about 5'3" and weighs little to nothing, and Rory Culkin's not much bigger either.
Yeah, but I guess you could say the same about 2. Like, would you like the mother? Billy's mother isn't. She's not a big imposing woman either. You're not expecting her to be able to do it.
Oliphant is.
Oliphant is. Don't get me wrong. The Oliphant you could believe, but she has to do it as well. Do you know? So I guess that argument can be made, kind of, in a lot of those films. But no, I do understand what you mean. Like Rory Culkin and they're smaller in stature, but again, the rest of the cast is quite small in stature there, really, as well. Like, you know, so kind of works, and they don't really do as much bodily checking in 4 that I remember. In 4, it's more about sneaking up and like removing people from the group, you know, to get the kills on them.
Which would make sense for smaller people.
Yeah, apart from at Stabfest and stuff. When.
Yeah, but that's kind of like Pandemonium.
Gail gets batted out.
Yeah, I guess, but that's kind of like Pandemonium. Like, they do stab her, so she's already weakened, and then they kind of just throw her from the hay bale, so she's going to be quite weak, and then there's just Pandemonium of everyone running around screaming. So I can kind of see that it could kind of work there, but I think a lot of people have 4 at the bottom, for the same reasons as you. Like, they don't think it ties into it well.
I think maybe there's the bit of bias as well, that it's not part of the original trilogy, that comes into that.
Yeah, I see. They bring Neve Campbell in, and she is a big part of it as well, though, in the 4th.
Oh yeah, no, I get that as well. So is Dewey, so is Gail. I just think, for a lot of people now, for me, it's just, there's certain things in the movie that throw me. Obviously, the killer's doing Superman stuff and things that I just don't believe in. Don't get me wrong, the script writing for it was brilliant, though. I'm not saying that it's not a good movie. It's a very fun whodunit, and as I said, the brutality in it's much better. Really ramps up from Scream 1. Kind of toned down a bit in Scream 2. Really toned down in 3, and then came back in 4. And then we'll get on to the other ones. If like 5 and 6 ramp it back up, but obviously we'd lost Wes Craven in the process of that as well. So we'd gone on to Radio Silence directing 5 and 6. But yeah, 4 is number 6 for me.
Okay. Well, for number 5, I had Part 4 in my 5th place.
Yeah, and I'm the same. I have 4 there, and I actually really enjoy 4. And I don't like having it so low down on my list. It's just that it can't be any higher based on the other ones. I really like it. I really like Emma Roberts, Hayden Panettiere, and stuff like that in it. I think they're really good. I think they actually play their, like, Hayden Panettiere is kind of like the alternative girl in it. Do you know what I mean? Like she's
That's the best way of describing it.
Yeah.
she's not like the popular girl, and neither is Emma Roberts' character. Do you know what I mean?
But
Whereas you kind of
they're
get the
not-
idea.
they're not-
Sorry, you kind of get the idea that in the original that Neve Campbell and her group of friends are kind of the popular group in
Outcasts.
school. No, I always got that they were kind of like the popular group in school. In the
I
original
got
film.
that Billy was definitely an outcast.
Mm.
See,
Neve
you get-
Campbell seemed to be the weird one.
No,
I wouldn't have said they were the most popular ones.
See, I would have said that they were, because although Neve Campbell has a tragic backstory, right, with her mother, but that's only from the year previously. Whereas Billy Loomis, everyone seems to love Billy. Do you know, like all the girls in the school love Billy. Stu seems to be like super popular. Like when Stu's like, I'm gonna have a house party, they're all going to Stu's house. Do you know what I mean? Like they all love him. Then, you know, like they all just seem to be quite popular, except Randy. Randy seems to be like the outcast that was friends with them from like when they were younger, and then he kind of sticks with them. Whereas like, I felt that they were kind of the popular crowd. Now, possibly that's just the way it's shot, because when you're in school, the people you hang around with, to you, are the cool, popular group. Do you know what I mean? Whereas, you know, in TV shows and all, it's not your friends. So, and TV shows go out of their way, and films go out of their way to portray that this is the popular group and this is the outcasts. But I always felt that in the original Scream, they were kind of like the relatively popular crowd, like everyone liked them. Whereas in Scream 4, I felt that they were kind of more to the side. Like in school, they weren't well liked or anything. Not that they were disliked, but that they just weren't well liked. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fair. Obviously, my pick's not going to be the same as yours.
No, I'm assuming
Uh,
yours is going to be the flip reverse of ours, though.
No, mine's Scream 1.
Nah, shut up, chat.
No, Scream 3 for me, yeah. Now,
Yeah.
as it says, this is one of them ones that I could flip-flop, but I always kind of lean towards rewatchability. It definitely goes Scream 3 over Scream 4.
Well, I have to. I know
Would probably be the main reason why I'd switch them.
Yeah, but you see, you know, I'm basing as well as this list as well on Kerry, because Kerry loves the Scream franchise, and I was talking about this with her earlier, and this is like a list that we both agreed on, and like because this is the fourth.
Look at him, he's getting help on his own list.
No,
Fuck's sake.
No, do you not think it's great that I'm nurturing horror with my young child? Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
No, you shouldn't be encouraging children to watch horror.
Oh, she has a choice. But anyway, what I was saying was
Yeah, it's watch horror or get the hell out.
exactly. But like, that's the first franchise that we've watched from start to finish together as a whole.
That's not true.
It is.
You just watched Fear Street.
I'm talking about the big ones, like.
I got him there. I got him there.
He
Stop
got
trying
you.
to get me out
He
all
got
the time,
you.
will
He
you?
got you there.
The point I'm making is that it's, you know, like that we're looking at rewatchability. You know, the way we have it is the way we would rewatch them, if you get me. You know.
I kind of
That's fair.
with Kerry though, it could be just an age bias though of
Oh, recency bias type thing.
not even recency bias, but like when you think about like 2011, Kerry would have been kind of like she's still in kind of her younger years there, so like that film and the people in it might have meant more to her than the likes of Neve Campbell and Matthew Lillard and stuff. Like she wouldn't have grown up with them
Kerry's
in other
what,
films.
17?
Okay, you're nearly 17, yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
so
like,
she would have been 5 or 6 when that came out.
Yeah.
yeah, but even with being 5 or 6, even if you wait a few years where she watches
Yeah,
it,
yeah, I
like
know
the
what you
likes
mean.
of the likes of Hayden Panettiere, the likes of Emma Roberts and stuff like that, are names that are coming up, or
She'd
that
probably know
might be
them.
in other films or other things that she's watching. Whereas the likes of David Arquette, Courtney Cox, Neve Campbell and stuff were big back in the 90s.
Yeah.
I get you. Yeah.
They're not really. They were
It was,
really.
it was
as
a great
big.
ensemble at cast for the 90s as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that was really good, and that could possibly be why Kerry leans towards 4 being better than 3. I lean towards it because I feel it was closer to the original way the films were done, and I do think Greg is probably right that 3 was hampered massively by the studios.
issues.
Yeah, the studio's going, that's too gory, we don't want that. And then Scream 4 and everything on from Scream 4 has benefited from the likes of Saw and stuff having come out.
Yeah.
Because Saw just went so brutal that like basically everything was on the table. And because Saw did so well, a lot of like companies were like, well, we don't want to go too brutal because we actually won't get an audience in. People don't want to watch that. And then they were like, well, actually, people were like, then they were like, well, actually, the people that like horror do want to see those big, gory scenes and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we can incorporate this back into our films. Now, obviously, Scream doesn't go that route where they go too gory. I think Scream actually goes the better route in the end, where they go more, less not gore, more cringe, but not cringe as in like, ugh, that's awkward or anything, but like something that you can feel like, like, you know, like when someone stands on a nail, you're like, oh, because you can imagine that happening. Like, I can't imagine.
No.
I can't imagine somebody like, you know, getting stabbed 600 times or something like that. You know what I mean? Or like,
and smiling and telling someone to run.
But yeah, like, or a big chainsaw and all the stuff that's in Saw. Like, I can't imagine that in my head. But like, we've all stood on like a nail or a thumbtack in our shoes or something. We've all done that, so we all understand that level of pain, and it makes you kind of like tense up in your neck and stuff. You're like, oh, yeah, like you get that, like not a cringe or anything, but like, oh, you feel that, and that's what Scream has gone with now. That's close. Now they do have some fairly bloody kills, but even those are like, oh, I could imagine that.
You know, it's what I like about it is, then it's in relation to that, it's the brutality and how the killers stab people or whatever. It's not necessarily the amount of blood. It's just how
Up
vicious
close and
they
personal.
do it. How vicious. It's, you're just, and like that, you're like, oh, fuck that, like the way they do. Like some of the kills in the later ones are just like they're vicious.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
And I like that. I really like that.
Well, so that's the bottom 2 done,
Mhm.
right? So where are we going for number 4, Ted?
It's the latest one for me. 6 is going in at number 4, and I went to see this in the cinema with Greg, and when we came out, we were both kind of in the same mind of, I don't really know how much I liked that. And I think part of the problem was, and I did say it to Greg at the time, I think part of the problem I'm having with the film is that the concept of the 6th film is something that I had been putting forward to you boys off air quite a few times. Of,
I remember.
they should have 2 killers, but like someone guiding them.
Yeah.
But to me, the person guiding them should always have been Stu. Should always have been Stu Walker. Because, you know, why would, like, don't get me wrong, a television falling on your head, especially one from the 90s, which were quite heavy. I'm not saying that couldn't kill you, but based on everything else that had happened, and like, yes, he had been stabbed and things like that, so he would have lost a lot of blood. So there's every chance that he does die. But they never, you know, all the other deaths are like a bullet in the head and things like that. Whereas this one could be, he was knocked out and put into a coma, he was in hospital for a few years, whatever. You could you could do anything and bring Stu back if you wanted, and that's where I always thought it should go. Like, bring Stu back and have, like, it doesn't even matter who the killers are.
Yeah.
If you just have him guiding them, like, he could manipulate. And, you know, listen, maybe this is something that they'll eventually go with. Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe,
Like in a final ever.
yeah,
one.
like, you know, like, say Scream 7, they turn around and they bring Stu back, and, you know, we know that the twins in this one, the girl always misses out on the final act, and she's always annoyed about missing out on the final act. Do you know what I mean? She says it in the first one, and then she says it in the second, or the fifth, and then the sixth one. She says she's annoyed that she missed out on the final thing. So maybe he gets to her and, you know, gets into her head that, like, well, the way to not miss out is to be the one doing it, and then it's her and her and somebody else. Like, that could be where they go with this. That's just complete speculation. I doubt it is where they'll go, but it could be. But for me, that should have been Stu, and it wasn't. I think that grated on me a little bit, because it was an idea I'd had and I knew where I wanted to go, and it didn't. But I've since rewatched it, and knowing that that's not going to happen, I still enjoy the film massively. The kills are incredible. Like the one of
definitely the most brutal.
The one of crossing the ladder, where she falls and
Oh,
cracks
yeah.
her neck on the thing. That is brutal looking. And although that kill is kind of, just go across the ladder quicker, like, there's a killer behind you, I would not be so worried about falling as I would that this guy is going to stab me. I would be fucking across that thing quick as anything.
Yeah.
But she has also been stabbed quite badly, like, so you can understand that, like, why she's slower and stuff like that. So all of that, everything that they do in that film where it's like, oh, but why wouldn't you just do this? Like,
Everything had an angle.
yeah, like when the boyfriend, the new boyfriend is looking across and he sees the murder happen and he's trying to ring them, and she looks at the phone and puts it down because she's like, oh, I don't want to answer to the guy across the hall. Like, all of that works. You're like, oh, well, why didn't she just answer the phone? Well, because she was with her family and they were trying to, reconnect and stuff. And everything, all those little nitpicky stuff are answered. And I love that in a film when they kind of do close any holes where people are like, oh, but this, you're like, but here's why that doesn't work, because we've closed that off. So as much as I think the film is brilliant, it only goes down as fourth because I think there's others that are just so much better than it.
Yeah.
King.
Fair. So, yeah, no, you see, I really do like 5 and 6. I really enjoyed them. But I put number 2 at 4, believe it or not. Yeah, again, and as I say, I mean, I think we're all in agreement here. We like all of these films. We just have them in different places for different reasons or whatever. But I just really liked 5 and 6 a little bit better than 2, if you get me. So.
Radio Silence done a hell of a job with 5 and 6.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
2 having come off the hugely successful number 1 was everyone kind of knew what to expect with the 2 killers. The question was, were they going to upgrade it and go to 3? Now, obviously, I was too young to know what was the talk at the time, and obviously the internet wasn't really that big.
Yeah.
Obviously, they done the same as the first one, where they got 2 big names to come in at the opening scene and kill them off. Obviously with Jada Pinkett Smith and I think, if I'm right, your man's name is Omar Epps, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
And they killed them off. Obviously, opening scene, big names, kill off. Had Sarah Michelle Gellar in it as well. Like, it was good. They reassembled the cast quite well and rebuilt. And I thought it gave them gave them a really solid foundation. 2, I think, was different enough that people enjoyed it and didn't think it was just basically a carbon copy. The twist at the end of 2 was brilliant, although you could see Oliphant was the bad guy pretty early on.
Yeah.
Well, I could anyway, the first time I seen it. Now, within saying that, I only seen Scream 2 at the start of lockdown because I thought I'd seen them all and I hadn't seen any of them. Or I might have seen one, but maybe it's just from watching so many horror films, you could see it coming. But maybe when that came out in the cinema, I would have been like, oh well, didn't see that.
Yeah.
See, I think the thing with Oliphant is they kind of gave you that one. They were like, listen, it's going to be him. What we're asking you to do, because as I said, what I love in certain films is I love whodunits, right? So the horror is usually who your killer is, right? Because you're following the killer and you know who it is, right? So that's standard horror. Like, here's your Michael Myers, here's your Freddy, here's, like, you know who the killer is, right? So you know all that. Whereas Scream went with the whodunit, which you kind of get in the so I loved the Poirot films. So Murder on the Orient Express, Death on the Nile, and then the most recent one, A Haunting in Venice, which I actually think is really good. I went to see it there recently. They're not horrors, but they're whodunits, right? So I love that. I love the whole concept of trying to work it out in my head, right? So is it this person or is it that, right? In the second one, they kind of give you Oliphant, but not so much that you're like, yeah, well, it's definitely him, because you second guess yourself. You're like, well, they've made it so obvious that it's probably him, that it's not going to be him. So what if it's Randy this time? Do you know what I mean? And you're then second guessing yourself. And then the second one gives you it gives you a reason as to why this happened again, as well. Like, he's someone that's studying film and is trying to make a name for himself and stuff. And then the other killer is Billy Loomis's mother. So it's a great tie-in. Do you know what I mean? Like, they make sure it ties together, which is what I think made the second one so successful.
They kind of throw you Liv Schreiber in there as well, don't they?
Yeah, they bring him back again, yeah. And, like, he's again living off the fame of what happened, do you know what I mean? Which is great, and he's brilliant at his role.
He's a great character, isn't he?
Oh, he's such a good, like, asshole.
Yeah.
But, like, an asshole for different reasons than the generic asshole, do you know what I mean?
He genuinely has a reason to be an arsehole.
Yeah.
He does, but not but you are like, yeah, I can understand why you're a bit of an asshole, dude, but you are such a fucking asshole. And, like, you could definitely have believed he would have been the killer, because they show how desperate he is for that 15 minutes of fame. And
But
you're like,
isn't that the beauty of the fact, like, that it wasn't him? Like, that's...
yeah, exactly. But you could have easily believed it was him. Like, nobody was expecting it was going to be Billy Loomis's mother.
No.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what was brilliant, because it ties it back to the first one, because the mother's upset. Obviously that her son was killed. But it's something you weren't expecting. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's why 2 was so successful off the back of 1, even though, as Greg said, everyone was kind of like, well, we know it's going to be 2 killers.
It was just whether or not they went 3 or more.
Yeah.
But, for me, at number 4, it's going to be 6.
Yeah.
And this is the closest as to where they go between my 4 and 3. And I mean, like, you could ask me tomorrow and I'll flip-flop.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved how proper vicious Ghostface was in 6.
Yeah.
And the fact that he used a gun was awesome.
That was cool.
I thought, do you remember when we watched the trailer for this and we were all a bit like, they haven't given much away here, but we have seen him use a gun, and they've said, oh, it's going to be something different. And everyone was like, oh, well, obviously the different thing is he's using a gun. And this is on a previous episode, obviously, so, like, if people want to check that out, it's in the catalogue there. That's what was great about that, is that they did expand him. Do you know, like, they were like, why do we have to always be a knife? And I think part of 6 is the cinematography is brilliant. Like, do you know when they go into the kill lair, basically, the kill box? Yeah, and it's like, here's bits of this and here's bits of that, and I loved, there's the knife that Hayden Panettiere, there's the knife that Hayden Panettiere was stabbed with. There's the TV that killed Stu Macher, because even on that it doesn't say that he's definitely dead. And then you get up and there's the array of the different robes and stuff, and then obviously the different masks.
Apart from even then, during the first 3 or 4, they never, 2, 3, and 4, they never really mention Stu. It's all just Billy. Really.
Yeah. Well, because Billy,
and
they all thought that Billy was the leader.
And 6 then was the first one that mentioned
Stu.
Yeah, and you're like, oh shit, it's setting you right up for it here.
Yeah, but I think they knew that people had been clamoring. Obviously the internet's there, so people have been clamoring for years on that, and they knew that people were like, oh, it could be Stu, and they played us. They did. Do you know what I mean?
The original idea, according to Kevin Williamson, who wrote it, was to bring him back as the bad guy in 3. So at the end of 2, when she's walking out of college and he's up in the clock tower.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be Stu, and then all the stuff with Columbine happened, and they toned it down, and then schedules just didn't line up. Allegedly.
Yeah. Now,
that's what he said in an interview. That's findable on the internet. That's an interview that he done.
Now, I am hoping that they eventually do bring him back, even just to tie out the story. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just that array of the different robes and stuff, and then the masks, having a fresh mask and then the most worn mask and stuff. I thought that was brilliant in the sixth one.
Yeah.
So like, as Greg said, like this is six. I said this is fourth on my list. But again, like, if you were asking me to rank all of the horror films, it'd be quite high. It'd be way ahead of a lot of other horror films. It's just fourth on this list because the Scream franchise to me is so strong. Even 4 and 3, which are, you know, consecutively fifth and sixth on my list, are still are a lot higher than a lot of other horror films for me. It's just, if you're in a franchise, there's going to be a best and worst of the franchise. And even if you're a really good film, if you're not as good as the other one in the franchise, you're going to be last. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there has to be a sixth to fourth in this if we're picking them. And just because we're doing that, that doesn't mean that they're any worse, or, you know, it's just how we prefer them, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's just you know, this is the one that I think is best, this is the one that you think is best, or this is the one that you think is the worst out of the lot, and things like that. And it's not that they're bad films, it's not that we don't enjoy them, it's just that they're not as strong as the other ones to us.
Yeah.
Now maybe other people will say like they think 6 is the worst. Maybe people just don't like that. Maybe people liked that it had kind of gone a little bit more lighthearted in 3, and then they liked 4 with the new younger cast, which I thought the likes of Emma Roberts and stuff were brilliant in the fourth one. And I thought Hayden Panettiere did really well in it. It didn't really leave itself open for another sequel because I don't think his plan was to do a 5th and a 6th. And then they've brought this back, and with the new the new cast and stuff, and obviously the old cast is coming in and things like that. But
I think I said it before to you. I think I've never seen a franchise reinvigorate itself quite like this did with 5 and 6. You know, and what I mean by that is, like, not that it needed reinvigorating, but it's just gotten more relevant even for younger audiences now, I think.
Yes, and that's the thing. They brought it back, you know, and it wasn't like it had disappeared. Whereas I would say that the franchise that did the best at pulling itself back from kind of, say,
obscurity or something.
Not even obscurity, but from people not considering it a great horror franchise anymore, I'd say Halloween is the strongest of them. I think Halloween has done the best in a resurgence. When you take the Halloween from 2018, then Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, I think if you take how far down the other Halloween slipped to that's the greatest resurgence, where Scream didn't need that as much.
No, but we got it, didn't we?
Yeah, we got it, but I don't think it needed it as much as the other ones did. But I think that they did it extraordinarily well. Like, I don't think there's any question about that. So it's just about where, like as you said, you've put 2 as your 4th, which I fully understand. Like, this is kind of where one of the debates is. Of 6 is more brutal, the cinematography is probably better, and is it not recency bias, because recency bias would obviously put 6 higher, so maybe that's what's happened with you, but then maybe the opposite has happened with me, and a nostalgia bias has allowed me to put 6 at 4th rather than 2 at 4th. Do you know what I mean? Maybe there's just a nostalgia feel of, well, I just, you know, I loved that second one.
Yeah, I can understand that, but like the feel for me was the of the 5th and 6th ones. I just loved that feel, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's very different. Yeah. You back in there, Greg? I don't know. Can you hear us, Greg?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sorry,
a bit of a power surge. Yeah, bit of a power issue there.
Yeah, that's what happens when you live in the sticks.
Yeah.
What are you laughing at?
Well, I don't live in the sticks, so I'm alright.
Sorry, you live in the Schwa part of town.
Yeah, of course I do.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. So where did I cut out, lads?
I'm not sure what the last thing you heard was, but me and King were just saying that
I was saying
possibly possibly
like-
the reason I have 6 as 4th is a nostalgia bias. That possibly I just feel 2 is better due to nostalgia, but King might also have 2 at 4th rather than 6
Yeah.
due to a recency bias. I think those two can swing. Those two can swing for me either way, and I think that you kind of said that yourself as well. This is the closest. Your 3rd and 4th are the closest in terms of these could flip flop, and I think it's very obvious where both of us are or all 3 of us are kind of going to go here. In that me and Greg are going to have number 2 as our 3rds, and King, you're going to have 6 as your 3rd, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'd highly imagine that we're going to have a match in 2 and a match in 1.
I would think that'll probably be the case, but I think like we've discussed about 2 and 3, like obviously, or 2 and 6 here quite in depth. Like the idea that Billy Loomis's mother returned and was the killer was brilliant, and Lou Schreiber, obviously you can fully believe he's going to be a killer, and then he's not because he's so determined for that 15 minutes of him. But then in this one, like in 6, it kind of comes out of nowhere, but it also throws back to 2 in that it's family members to Richie. Do you know what I mean? And that, I think, is really good. And again, it's classmates. I don't know if you've ever picked up on that. Even though all 3 of them are the family of Richie in the 6th one, they're also the classmates and roommates of
the college kids.
The kids that are in college. Which, Timothy Oliphant's character was a classmate of Randy's.
Yeah.
So they kind of tied that in all together. So now I'm interested in, say, the 7th one. Will they tie it back, and will it be... The rule is always that the 3rd in a trilogy is it brings back someone from the past. Which, again, would that be Stu? Do you know what I mean? Now, I think... Again, this is what happened to the 6th one when I watched it in the cinema. I built up that it was going to be Stu in my head, and possibly that affected my original enjoyment of it. I have since watched it again, and I did really enjoy it.
Yeah, very much so.
But like, possibly I'm going to do that with 7 again. But this is part of what makes sequel or like franchises and things like that fun, is that in our own minds we're spinning stories, and we're like, oh, what if they do this, and what if this is the case, and we're always trying to guess. It's why things like Game of Thrones back in the day, people loved it so much, because anyone could have died. It always seemed like anyone could die, and you were always left guessing. You were like, oh, well, what's going to happen here now? Who's going to... Oh, is that person going to die? And everyone was making up their own theories, and that's what people like doing. That like, people enjoy being able to do that. So that's what Scream allows you to do, whereas, as I said, like the different other ones like Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street, you know who the bad guy is, so it kind of gets rid of that element of predicting what's going to happen and this, that, and the other. Do you know what I mean?
So
I think, I suppose you're probably right with it being recency bias, probably a little bit. Now, I will say, Radio Silence done a hell of a job with their 1 in 6, and it's fully understandable why King has it at 3. As I said, it's very, very close. But I'm gonna hazard a guess here and say we're all gonna match here on number 2.
I think so.
It'll be Radio Silence's debut into the Scream franchise in 5 for me, anyway.
Absolutely.
It is for me, but I think the only difference between me and you boys is that I've said on previous shows that I think on a different day, if I hadn't watched Scream early on, the original Scream, so early on in watching horrors, and enjoyed it so much and pinned, this is my favorite horror franchise, if I hadn't pinned everything to that, if I was, say, someone like Kerry's age, and I only started watching horror, I would fully understand if someone told me that 5 was better than 1. 100% I would understand it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think you boys were kind of like, no, it's definitely, like, 1 is definitely better. But I think that's our age. That's our...
Yeah, I agree with you.
Nostalgia. That's our nostalgia bias saying that this is the best one. If a younger person told me they thought 5 was better than 1, I wouldn't be able to argue too much against that. Like, obviously the main argument is, but one of the greatest points of 5 is the feeling you get when we lose David Arquette.
Yeah.
And you don't get that if 1, 2, 3, and 4 haven't happened, so it wouldn't have mattered as much. But that's always the way in a franchise. If there's a character that's been built up, you're going to feel when you're like, oh my god, especially one as loved as Dewey's character was in all of it, like
Yeah.
people like Greg, obviously being one of the main ones, isn't a big fan of Gale Weathers. And you're not meant to be a fan of Gale Weathers. You don't really ever sympathize with Gale Weathers. You're never meant to like her, but you're always meant to, respect her in this. Just like respect her in the sense that, like, listen, she's gone through a lot, and she always does help them out, and you can understand why there's a grudging friendship between her and Sydney and stuff. Do you know what I mean? But you're never meant to like her the way you liked Dewey. Like, from get-go, everyone liked Dewey. Gale tries to, toy with him to get information, to get the scoop and stuff like that, and she takes advantage of him being not stupid. Like, I know in Scary Movie they obviously make him really dim-witted and stuff. Yeah, like they make him really stupid. But in this, he's just he's such a genuine nice guy and things like that, and she takes advantage of that. But throughout the entire film, like, he comes back even when he has the limp and stuff, because he's worried about Sydney getting hurt and things like that at the whole time. So when he dies, it really was gut-wrenching. Like, really hurt to see him get killed.
And it wasn't even just a minimum kill either. Like,
that was brutal.
He rips through him back and front, and when everything's just dropping out on the ground, you're like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah, he's not coming back from this one.
Yeah, and you're always kind of hoping that, like, listen, he's in a hospital. Maybe if it was just a couple of stab wounds, like, yeah, no one's in the hospital, but maybe since he's already there, when they all pile back into the hospital, they'll be able to save him. But then you see how brutal it gets, and you're like, no, that's him. That's him done. But yeah, you don't get that if you don't have Scream 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is the argument I would use to say that Scream is better than, or the original Scream 96 is better than this one. But if someone younger said to me, oh no, I much prefer Scream 5, and I think it's better, I don't think there's a whole lot that I could say other than that to say, no, you're wrong. So I think a lot of it is a nostalgia bias to me. I could completely understand someone flipping the script and saying 5 is better, and it's to say I could see someone even having Scream, the original Scream, behind 5 and 6. I could easily see someone younger doing that. Do you know what I mean?
It's that kind of list, like we were saying. Like, you could, like, that if you turn around and said to me, I have number 1 at 4, and you say there's a valid reason for everyone having their different opinions in that sense, because the franchise is so strong. If we could all have 3 totally different lists, and could say, well, I can understand why you have it there, or I can understand why you have that there. It's just such a strong franchise in consistency.
Yeah, I think it's because we've all grown up being able to see all of them kind of from the start onwards that we have an affiliation to the original one. And I know, Greg, you didn't watch it until you'd always thought you'd watched it, but you hadn't actually watched it until lockdown. But even with that, you still had an affiliation to the first one. Do you know what I mean? You still felt closer to that one than you did the others. So I can fully, like, our lists are always going to be the same, and even though Dynamo's not here, I would imagine his list would be
very similar to
1, 5, and then probably.
No, I think his was 1, 2, 5.
I think at one point his was 1, 2, 5, but again, that could have switched. Do you know what I mean? But his, again, he's of the same sort of ilk as us, a little bit older.
Yeah.
Whereas you said you sat down with Kerry. Kerry probably had more of a difficulty in discerning 5 over 1, do you know what I mean, than we would.
Yeah.
She probably found that more difficult because it's, this is her time to be watching.
Yeah.
Like, this is her growing up and getting into those films, do you know what I mean?
I think 1 is shot better though, as well.
Well, you know what? 1 was fresh. When you think about it, in a time when was it, 96?
96, yeah.
Yeah, like, it was a bit of a flaccid time for horror films, really. And something fresh. Whereas
it was very different. 2 killers.
Oh.
You don't focus on the killers. You don't know who they are.
Yeah.
It was a brand new concept to it.
But, like, it it took the trope of the kids or whatever, and it changed it up a little bit.
But it also took away as you said, the horror tropes. It wasn't about having sex and dying. It wasn't about the jock getting killed, the stupid guy. The nerd, you know what I mean? There was all them things, but they were thrown in your face and then taken away from you.
And
Yeah,
when you
but
think about it, sorry, Ted, I was just going to say, who better to bring that to you than Wes Craven?
Yeah, and the way he brought it to you was fine because he knows he's shot this in '96, right? So these tropes already exist from the '80s of, if you drink, do drugs, you have sex, all of the things that were considered, to be sinful.
Mm-hmm.
If you do these things, you will get killed, and if you don't, you won't get killed. And that's all from the original horrors. But we have a character in Randy Meeks who's a big horror buff. So it would have been stupid for him not to know that those tropes exist, considering he's meant to be this big film buff. So it made sense for him to be like, these are the things. Don't say I'll be back, like I'll be right back. And he said,
I'll be right back.
if he didn't know those things, it wouldn't feel as authentic. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously he knows them. He works in the local
Video shop.
I don't know what their video shops are called. I assume they were kind of Blockbusters and stuff, but I don't think he worked in a Blockbusters. I think he just worked in like the local one,
Jimmy's
Jimmy's videos or whatever. You know what I mean? Like he worked there, so it made sense for him to know all this stuff because it was his genre, it was his stuff. It made sense for him to know. But even though those tropes existed, they still came back to bite people in the ass. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like Rose McGowan's character did it on purpose, saying
Yeah.
I'll be right back. Do you know what I mean? So there it was put in your face.
No, well, Stu said that he'd be right back in the original one.
Yeah, but she says it as well, but she's going into the basement to get the beer.
Yeah, but he hasn't given the speech by that point, which I thought was interesting. He gives the speech a little bit later because Stu says it directly after he says the speech.
Yeah. But then
Oh,
makes
yes.
you come back to the then.
Yeah, so like you do
I-
see you see the trope happen earlier, and then he explains the trope, and you're like, oh no, that did happen in this film. And then obviously, Sydney for the whole way through the film is, she hasn't slept with Billy Loomis, and then she does, and it's like, oh, now she's going to die because she did, and things like that. Do you know what I mean? But then they don't follow that trope either.
As I said on previous episodes, I was always a Craven first guy, surely for the affiliation to Nightmare on Elm Street. But Carpenter is the better of the two directors, but Wes Craven is the better character creator.
Agreed. Agreed.
Like he created Ghostface, he created Freddy Krueger, he created countless other memories, Hills Have Eyes and things. Do you know what I mean? I think in terms of horror, he's a better character creator anyway. But John Carpenter's just a better film director. But as you said, who better to bring this kind of meta? This was one of the first real meta movies to come, and probably no one better than Wes Craven to do it.
I would love. Obviously, it's not possible, but I would have loved to see Craven and Carpenter work together.
Ooh,
So
imagine that.
Craven on your, like on a brand new thing, like so
Project.
not working on Scream together, not working on any of their old stuff together.
Yeah.
Brand new character, brand new franchise. Whereas you go off and create our character, our killer, our villain, I guess. But it's kind of hard to say that it's the villain because obviously in Halloween everyone loves Michael and he's the villain and things like that. And in Nightmare on Elm Street everyone loves Freddy and he's the villain. So it's very, villain is a bit of a hard.
Slashers are bred differently to other horror movies, though, aren't they? You're led to lead love with the villain, really.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's where Wes Craven was so smart because in some of his slashers he does do that, whereas in Scream you don't love the guy in the masks or the people in the mask. Your affiliation is towards Neve Campbell. So he is very good in writing in that sense that he was able to dictate who your allegiance was to. Do you know what I mean?
A lot of that's down to Kevin Williams as well. Kevin Williamson done a hell of a job with it.
Oh yeah, he did. But that's what I'd love to see. Like I'd love to see Wes Craven have gone off and created a character and to have let John Carpenter kind of direct it and do it in his style, like, and kind of mesh there. So I'd have loved to seen something like that. Obviously, we never got it.
I don't think that would have worked because Carpenter was too involved with his own thing, and he'd want it his way. Craven was the same. It's the reason they never really probably done anything like that.
Oh yeah, no, I understand why they didn't do it, and why it wouldn't have worked. But I would have loved to have seen them
Yeah.
be able to come together and do that, because you
I'd
would
love
have
to have
got
sat in and just listened to them talking about
Like,
even
just-
trying to create it.
you just would have got such a good, strong film of like, here's a great character that's going on to terrorize wherever John Carpenter's decided it's going to terrorize. Do you know what I mean? It would have been done so well.
I think I think it would have been perfect, really. But I think the creative issues would have happened between the two of them.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I wonder, John Carpenter, right, is John Carpenter is brilliant at films, at a film. I think that's probably the fairest way to say this. The first in a John Carpenter film series is brilliant. After that, it gets a little bit questionable. Whereas Wes Craven was better at creating a character that you could then build on. Because even though, so he created the Scream character, right? The Scream character could have been anyone. So it allowed him to continue on because he put the main focus on Neve Campbell, Dewey, all of them. John Carpenter puts it more on on the character itself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the arc.
Yeah, so like obviously you've got Halloween, and that didn't do great up until you had the original Halloween, which was brilliant, and then I think the last three were brilliant. Whereas I think everything in between that was a bit
Two was okay. 3 was brilliant.
Yeah,
but 3 was Tommy Lee Wallace.
3 was kind of a little bit different, but I think all of them were Whereas Escape from New York, brilliant. Escape from LA, not so brilliant. Do you know what I mean? I think a lot of John Carpenter's films were like that. Like there was Big Trouble in Little China, brilliant. There was meant to be a sequel, and it never ended up getting made, which was probably a good thing because it probably wasn't going to be that great. Do you know what I mean? And maybe that's kind of where John Carpenter kind of struggled in that sense, whereas Wes Craven didn't. But then I guess people could say, did Nightmare on Elm Street after the first one was it great after that? Is another argument as well to say against that. I don't think
3 was.
3 was very good. 2 was again a bit. Do you know what I mean?
I hate it. I hate it so much.
I think Scream as a legacy is a more lasting in terms of the 6th film.
Yeah,
and that's because the character wasn't.
Yeah, well, like the
wasn't locked.
Freddy,
it didn't have to be someone. Yeah, Freddy had to be Freddy. Do you know what I mean?
Freddy, whereas like you said, like the Ghostface could have been anybody. You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's a lasting testament to Wes Craven. I think.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that it was picked up and done well.
Yeah.
Because obviously we know that people have wanted to pick up Jaws, and they've been trying to pick up Jaws for a long time to make.
We'll forget about the Michael Caine fiasco.
Yeah, but I don't know if the new Jaws is they're like, we want to create a
reboot.
Yeah, but I don't know if they wanted to reboot or if they want to do similar to what was done with Halloween. Do you know? And just go, here's the continuation. Now, you can't really do a continuation with Jaws because obviously the shark is killed.
So is Roy Schneider.
Yeah, but you could then continue it on and say, right,
here's the kid or something, the son.
His son has now grown up, and obviously you probably wouldn't use that actor, he'd be too old, and he wasn't a big name, so you'd get probably someone who was a bigger name, but you could do something like that, do you know what I mean? And possibly that's where they want to go and have like
I just hope Spielberg doesn't give it up.
I don't think he will, but like obviously people have wanted to do that, do you know what I mean? And thankfully when that happened with Scream, it was taken up by somebody who did a good job with it. Like I'd love to see A24 get their hands on kind of one of those older ones again, like I don't know, like Texas Chainsaw isn't really one that leads to sequels.
I had a good reboot already, so
yeah, again, but it's a reboot. It's not a continuation. Like those films don't really lend themselves to continuations. Evil Dead
Yeah.
Rises actually did very well, I think.
Did you notice how I left out Green's Texas Chainsaw 22 there? I just went straight to the reboot.
Yeah, well, the reboot was fine, and then they tried this, and that wasn't great. But like
Evil
if you
Dead
took
was-
Evil Dead was done very well. If you took like Nightmare on Elm Street and decided to reboot that, I'd be
Yeah.
happy to see that, not rebooted, but a continuation, like a new twist. And obviously, I've given my idea on what I think the twist should be. It should be like a VR thing, but there's hundreds of ideas that you could go with and stuff like that. Somebody in a coma, anything like that. Do you know what I mean? I'd like to see, not necessarily some of those older ones, but if they are going to try and take them the way they did with Scream, I'd like to see someone take it and do as well as they did with Scream. And
Right,
really like make some seriously, like neither of the two new films are at the bottom of our lists. Do you know what I mean? And that says a lot.
I think that's probably the best place to leave it there. Obviously, from that conversation, everyone's gathering that Scream 96 is in fact the number one, which
Oh, yeah.
is no surprise.
Yeah.
But overall, Ted, you picked a hell of a franchise to latch onto.
To pin your colours to, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Boys, it's been good to have you back. King, it's been a while.
As well,
Ted.
hopefully I can get more in now.
Yeah, we'll get you back. We'll get you back in. You're worse than sick now these days. Anyone
Well,
that doesn't know that,
technically-
it's from our other show.
Technically, I mean, my fingerprints are on every show because I produced them. So
He does, and I give him credit for that. But he's worse than sick now at this minute in time. Ted, it's great to have you back on. Obviously, you weren't going to miss the Scream show.
No, of course
I
not.
don't
We
think
couldn't have done
we
it
could have done
without
it without you.
no way.
But I think we'll leave it there, folks, for your Friday night. We'll close this out the way I close out every single Friday night. In the words of the great George A. Romero, ladies and gentlemen, stay scared.
Woo! Here we go.